Hi everyone, welcome to our podcast, the FinTech Duo. I'm Kenny, as
I'm
always,
Edward.
and this is Edward. This podcast is essentially breaking down FinTech concept, financial technology concepts to you guys, right? In layman terms, we're trying to break it down as simple as possible so that everyone can understand what we're talking about. And we're going to touch on so many different fintech concepts in this podcast series. We're going to be starting off with artificial intelligence, AI, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and also how these kinds of concepts can be integrated into different kinds of industry, such as healthcare, or even how we can actually save the environment with, fintech. Right? So and we will also be inviting some speakers, right? Guest speakers, experts in the field of fintech in Singapore to come and give, have a conversation with us as well, right? So that's basically what we're going to do with this podcast.
Yeah. So before we dive straight into our podcast, I'll give you a brief intro of what IFTC is about if you haven't heard of it. So I and Kenny are the organizers of the Inter-School FinTech Challenge, which is the first ever fintech competition for junior colleges across Singapore. So one part of this entire case competition is actually our learning festival, and this podcast fits into that because the learning festival aims to increase fintech literacy across the youth in Singapore. So we aim to make them a lot more knowledgeable about the fintech landscape and how it has a lot more potential for the future, right? So this podcast is actually an extension to our videos and our study guides, our quizzes, for you to actually learn more in depth about different topics and to directly hear from our guest speakers later, right? Okay?
Yeah.
So in this podcast, we'll be starting off with artificial intelligence along with the Internet of Things, right? So Kenny, what are the three types of artificial intelligence and how do they affect fintech?
I think first of all, you need to understand the problem with conventional data collecting, right? So because with a lot of technological revolution in the past few decades, you have tablets and smartphones and everything, and there are over 35 billion devices connected by the internet, right? And a lot of data consumption has been growing according to this. So like in 2020, every human created at least like 1.7 megabytes of data every single second, right? And today we consume a lot of data. But the problem with that is that with these staggering quantities of data that we create daily, no human or group will be able to effectively analyze these streams of data to detect any patterns or get any insights and to take any actions on those kinds of data, right? So imagine I have like 1,000 millions, right, data on like, let's say I'm like a vendor and I want to analyze my consumer, data. Conventionally, I have so many data and humans are not able to process that data.
Look for everything,
yeah.
right?
And this is how AI comes in, right? Artificial intelligence is extremely important to automate that and to try to analyze data, help us generate insights and makes our digital experiences more efficient and enriching through the personalization that AI can bring as well, right? So three types of AI that we're going to talk about today. The first one is artificial narrow intelligence, second one is artificial general intelligence, and third one is artificial super intelligence. And I'll be going through that later. But Edward, what exactly is artificial intelligence? Can you give us like a simple definition of what exactly is AI?
So, in the most basic terms, artificial intelligence is the ability of a computer program or a machine to think and learn, right? So it can carry out operations that we humans normally do. And these operations might be something that's mundane for us or something that's a bit more time consuming. And one thing about these kind of operations is that they are fixed, such that they are structured in a way that we can repetitively do it. So artificial intelligence comes in and then it actually saves us time, right? Because it carries out these repetitive operations, right? So there's three types of AI as you mentioned. So what about artificial narrow intelligence?
When you want to categorize AIs, I think the main categorization that you can do is, of course, according to the ability, right, to actually do programming or like machine to actually think and learn. So these three types of AI are categorized according to those kinds of ability. So we start with, the simple ability, narrow intelligence, as the name suggests. So in this state, AI is at a level of intelligence where it has a very narrow range of abilities, right? And this is the only type of intelligence that we have successfully, came up with in today's world, right? And this looks like program that is trained to do simple tasks based on a very fixed set of inputs, right? So let's say I want to input some data on it. This type of AI can only handle this fixed sets of tasks, right? And if I input any different kinds of data, these kinds of AI won't be able to analyze this data at all, right? So moving on to the second one, general intelligence or AGI. This one is a step up from the narrow intelligence type. This is the type of AI where you can actually mimic human intelligence in ways such as having emotions and understanding a more abstract concept. So this is a level where the device can fully work and actually make decisions almost like how human beings do. So this level, we have not reached this level yet, but I mean, if you talk about Elon Musk and Tesla, I mean, in the news you can see he's trying to develop like this humanoid that can think like human. So in the near future, this might be possible.
You're moving a lot more closer, right?
And the last type, this one is like an OP of the AI, right? Super intelligence, right? So this is achieved when AI is even surpassing human intellect and becomes self-aware, right? So this type of AI will be able to actually fully experience human perceptions, right? Such as vision, hearing, comprehension, or even feelings. And this is a largely hypothetical concept and is unlikely to be met within the next few decades or so.
Seems like we are a long way ahead. But who knows, man? The world is changing so fast.
I know.
We could be getting closer to that.
Yes.
Right, okay.
I think the next topic that we should talk about is, some people, like you guys might probably have heard of deep learning, machine learning, and you guys might probably think, oh, is it the same as AI, and what do these things actually do? Maybe you wanna, Edward, you wanna clarify that a bit?
So we always hear these terms being bounced around a lot, right? Deep learning, machine learning, big data, but most of the time people kind of mix them around, right? But here we'll be breaking them down and trying to explain all of them in simple terms, okay? So actually, basically, deep learning is actually a subset of AI. Machine learning is also a subset of AI, and they're all connected in a way such that deep learning is actually a subset of machine learning, right? And machine learning is finally a subset of artificial intelligence.
AI is
as
the
a
big
whole.
circle.
Yeah, so AI is a big circle, right? Right.
Machine learning is the inner circle.
Yeah.
But deep learning is the smallest circle inside both the AI and
exactly.
learning.
Yes. So deep learning is just a subcategory of machine learning where you have algorithms that imitate the way that we gather knowledge, right? So it's very deeply ingrained into data science, where it's actually involved in your statistics and your modeling, right? So it allows your scientists to collect and model a lot of data and to give you the graphs, right? So one example of this is actually in your voice assistants, where they have to look at so many different kinds of cases, different kinds of input that we humans will put in, right? And then it kind
like Siri.
Yeah, like Siri, Google Assistant, right? And then it processes it for expected results. And now let's look at machine learning. So machine learning actually goes a step higher compared to deep learning, where it actually uses AI to analyze the data and then work on that data. So it could be our facial recognition technology, right? It analyzes all the facial inputs in the database and then checks like a person's face that's being inputted right now compared to other faces to recognize a person, right? And this is all under our huge circle of artificial intelligence, right? Okay, so that was AI. And let's finally end off with big data, right? So actually before that, how do you think like everything you've gone through about AI, how's it going to change the future that we live in right now? What are the pros, the cons?
That's a definitely big thing. So let's talk about just simply how AI can be integrated with businesses, SMEs and everything. So AI has a very large potential for businesses around the world. And you can see a lot of big tech companies where they are Tesla, Apple, Facebook, whatever. They're using AI integrating into their business models as well, because they can analyze, right, data that they collect. They can actually automate a lot of simple tasks, right, that humans can do but repetitively do so. So AI can actually come in and replace some kinds of workers, some kind of these kinds of machine can actually carry out tasks that help improve their services and products, right? And I'm just going to give you like one simple application on AI and business, right? And how it's going to change the world is that AI is creating a lot of personalized service for customers, right? Such as personalized content through streaming services.
Oh yeah, Netflix, right?
Netflix.
All those recommended shows.
Yeah, that's all done by AI, right?
Yeah,
and when you go into Google, you know, how they rank your search results, also they use your past data to actually use this AI to analyze data and came up with, you know, the most optimal, you know, kinds of search results that you're most likely to click into that, right? So these are kinds of different things that AI can do for business, right? And yeah, I think in the future, definitely going to be more diverse in terms of AI, because right now, as I already mentioned, it's already at artificial narrow intelligence only.
Yeah, we still have a long way to go, right?
Yeah. And like definitely a lot of rooms for people, a lot of rooms for startups, and implementation of AI will definitely become an extremely important part of business, right? So these are some kind of things that AI definitely will change our future.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. But so continuing on from the part where you mentioned about search engines, right? So right now we have billions of people around the world, and each person have their own, you know, personalized recommendations. So we're looking at a very vast quantity of data,
Definitely.
right?
Yes.
Like billions of gigabytes. Like we know that Google servers are massive and they are around the world, right? So let's talk about big data, right? So big data is actually using AI to crunch these numbers, to go through like a very large amount of data. And obviously there's two types. You have the structured and you have the unstructured type of data. So the unstructured one is the one that we deal with more today, right? Because a lot of the data coming in is a lot more unexpected, and you have a lot more new things coming in. So big data is actually used inside AI for you to actually analyze the data, create models, predictions, and to actually power up like the various tools that we use today. So you have YouTube, Google, like the different stock markets, right?
So is it correct if I say that big data is the type of data that AI will be analyzing? Right?
Yes. It's something that AI really revolves around, right? Yes. Okay. So that was big data, and I think that will be the main topics that we're covering today.
Yeah, and just to sum up, you know, in like 1 minute, we have talked about AI as a whole, how it changes the world. We have talked about different types of AI according to their level of intelligence. We talked about what's the difference between deep learning, machine learning, how AI can be integrated with businesses, the future of AI, and also a bit on big data and how it's going to change the world. And that's just the fundamental of fintech, right? Concept, underlying concept. And in the next episode, what are we expecting, Edward? What are we going to touch on in the next episode?
On the next episode, we can all stay tuned for more popular fintech topics. So you can stay tuned to learn more about blockchain and more about cryptocurrencies, you know, bitcoins and stuff.
Definitely interesting. Looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so that's all for our very first episode for the FinTech Duo, and see you all in our next episode.